Hello friends, and welcome back to the brioche series. In this episode, we'll make some brioche croissants, or at least, we'll attempt to. They were super rich and delicious, and they look beautiful. But I wasn't 100% happy with the insides though. Could have got the layers a bit better. But I'm not filming this video again. By now, I got butter running through my veins. I'm like half man, half brioche. And it was pretty good for my second try at croissants. And as always, you'll find all the little details down in the description box. I always include weights and measurements in metric and imperial units. Now all the equipment we need today is a tray with some non-stick paper, a rolling pin, a brush and a pizza cutter, or a knife, but this works really well. And for best results, also use a ruler. And when it comes to the ingredients, you need brioche dough, some butter, an egg, something to glaze your croissants with. I'm going to use a bit of apricot jam, but you can use sugar syrup as well. And make sure your butter and your dough are at the same temperature. They should come from the fridge. We need to shape the butter into a square in between layers of baking paper. You can use a rolling pin and your scraper to help you along. And try to have it as perfectly square as you possibly can. Some of you may be wondering, now, why are we jumping straight into making croissants? Where's the brioche dough recipe? And I do have that in a separate video, in my first video on the brioche series. You can watch it in the link in the top right corner here. If I would include the brioche dough recipe in each of the separate brioche videos, they would be half an hour long, and no one would watch that. And also, you don't have to use my brioche dough for this. You can use your favorite recipe. Just make the dough, refrigerate it overnight, and this is when you use it. So once you've shaped your butter into a square, let's get on with shaping the dough. It is a little bit sticky, so make sure you flour everything well. Always like to start off by patting the dough out with my fingertips and then trying to get it into a general shape using my hands first, and only then getting on with the rolling pin. Same treatment as with the butter. You want to roll this out to a square. This must be larger than the butter dough. You can press it like this, you can roll it, but try to make it as square as possible. And let me show you real quick. This is how we will enclose the butter into the dough. And I realize now I could have rolled it a little bit smaller, but this will do. Now let's grab the butter and place it right in the middle of the dough, so that the points, it doesn't look much like a square anyway, but you want the points of the butter to be in between the points of the dough, if that makes sense. And then fold the corners of the dough into the center of the butter, so they all meet in the middle. Have them overlap a little bit for a better seal. And try to get as square as possible. This will help with rolling later on. Now if your kitchen is really warm, make sure you work quickly. You don't want the butter or the dough to start getting too soft. And once everything's nicely closed up, square it off using your hands, dust everything nicely with flour, and we start rolling. You want to roll it out to a long rectangle basically. Roll it until it's about half an inch thick. And then kind of visually divide it into quarters. And that's how we will fold it. Take one quarter and fold it towards the center. And then fold the other side over the same way to meet in the middle. And then once everything's nice and square, you can fold it over once more. This is exactly the same method I use for my brioche fouettée. You can check that video out in the top right corner. Once everything's nicely folded, square it off again, then we'll wrap it up and get it in the fridge to cool down a bit. Half an hour or so will do. Chilling the dough in the fridge will make it easier to work with, but also relaxes the gluten, makes it easier to roll out. So it's definitely a necessary step, especially for the home baker. So the next fold is a bit different. We have two open ends and one open side and one closed side. We want to roll the dough out into the direction of the two open ends. Once again, flour everything generously and start rolling. You want this to be about the length of your forearm. And this time we're going to fold it differently, so visually divide it into thirds, square it off again, and pick 1/3 up and fold it over. Brush off any excess flour, we don't need this. And then grab the other third and fold it over in the other direction. And it's as simple as that. Now once again, just square it off using your hands. We'll wrap it up, place it in the fridge to cool down. This time we'll leave it in there for 1 hour. Because this was the last fold, the next step will be rolling out, shaping and baking. And we want the dough to be nice and solid for this, and nice and relaxed. And same as before, just dust your dough with flour, dust your table, and we'll start rolling it out. You want to roll this to a large square, about 1/2 centimeter thick. I think that's like 1/4 of an inch or so. If the dough keeps resisting and pulling back together, what you can do is just roll it out and leave it to rest for 5 minutes, and then come back and keep rolling. And keep dusting it with flour, if you have to obviously, because sometimes this may stick. But there's no special techniques here, just keep rolling until it's the desired thickness. This piece of dough will yield 6 decent sized croissants and some cut-offs that you can bake also. So we want the bottom of the dough to be around 35 centimeters long. That is if you are using a ruler, which I do recommend. Now the main reason why I'm using a pizza cutter is because I don't want to ruin my table. And the first move we need to do is square off the bottom so it's nice and straight. And then do the same with the top part, but don't worry about the sides. Now using your ruler, from the bottom corner mark off 10 centimeter long pieces. But when it comes to the top, first mark off a 5 centimeter piece, that will be the point of the croissant, and then continue on with 10 centimeters. And now, all you need to do is using a ruler, connect the dots. As you can see, our croissants are starting to take shape. And no worries about trim pieces, you can still wrap them up and shape them into little buns or whatever and bake them. They'll still taste the same. So definitely use them up, don't, just chuck them away. Okay, we're ready for the final shaping. This is quite a fun part actually. Croissants, France, Paris, so imagine this is kind of like an Eiffel Tower. Cut a little slit in the bottom for the legs, then stretch out the top. Flattening the tip will ensure that it always sits flush with the croissant. And now we're ready to roll. Just gently roll it up from the bottom to the top. Simple as that. That's your croissant. And if you mess this one up, you got 5 more to practice on. This was only my second time doing this, and it came out quite good. Now let me quickly show you another perspective of the shaping. Cut the bottom, stretch it out a bit, spread it out, and then roll it. You don't have to be super quick, just take your time, be patient. And that's our half decent croissant. Not bad, right? Now grab your tray with non-stick paper and arrange them so they have enough space to expand. And now all we need to do is cover them up and wait. It took around 2 hours to proof these completely, but it may take you less time, may take you longer, depends on the temperature of your kitchen. Just keep an eye on them and watch them as they expand. They should almost double in size before baking. During the last hour of proofing, preheat your oven to 180°C with a fan on. So a good way of telling that your croissants have proofed enough is that they are nice and soft, they are puffed up, almost double in size. You should be able to clearly see the layers when you look at them from the side. And if you shake the tray a bit, they should have a little bit of a wobble to them. We'll give them an egg glaze before baking. In the bowl I have 1 egg whisked with 1 tablespoon of water. And just grab your brush and gently brush them all over. Don't press too hard because they are quite fragile at this point. And we'll coat them twice. Brush them all over, let them dry for 5 minutes, and then come back and brush them once again. And after the second coat, they're ready for the oven. And we will bake them for 15 minutes at 180°C. And then after the first 15 minutes, you want to turn the temperature down to 160 and then continue on baking 10 more minutes. And they puffed up quite nicely. There's one more thing we need to do, is to glaze them, to give them that nice shine. I'm using a bit of apricot jam that's been diluted with a bit of water. You don't want this to be too thick. Now grab your brush and brush them all over. And that's the brioche croissant for what it's worth. They're not the best, but I tried. And you should give it a try too. I will link my brioche playlist at the end of this video. You can check out some other recipes that you can do. Also, if you are into experimenting with different flavors and cool new ideas, check out my friend Avery's channel. He has a recipe for rosemary brioche, which is quite cool. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, drop them down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.